Hey everybody, Stinger here. I want to invite you to a pretty cool podcast.
Watch this film. Be quite nice. Have a good time. You'll be very evil. And you'll have that Danhausen.
Hey, this is Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
Yes, it is I, Big E, but more importantly, it is you.
And you might remember me from such YouTube greats as being the Elite and Chris Daniels Almost Dies.
And if you're looking for the very best wrestling content, you better come to Good Mic Work Commentary.
And I'm just going to tell you now, as a role model, you got to tune into this because if you also want to be a role model, you got to learn from the best.
We have a rapport, and we have been so close over so many years. This is not a cameo or a paid endorsement in any regard. This is a message of friendship.
Man, we met 20 years ago, 21 years ago now. Time is flying, isn't it?
I want to wish you all the best in your YouTube channel, and hopefully I can maybe make a special guest appearance on there sometime.
And I used to say, hey, Greg Morgan, and he used to say, please call me Greg, and I wouldn't do it.
Good mic work. Commentaries.
Awesome YouTube channel. Now, if you've seen these videos before, you know what I'm talking about.
We would do verbal chain wrestling. You know, we'd be off in the yard, the schoolyard at recess.
And he's also a 40-year-old wrestling fan. That's a long damn time.
And we'd just be staring at each other, and he'd say, hammerlock. And I'd say, all right, I've reversed the hammerlock into a hammerlock of my own, then I put you in a headlock. And, you know, that would go on for hours.
He's not going to fill your head with bullshit. He's going to tell you real deal, what's up, and that's that.
Raw, SmackDown, NXT. This guy covers it all, my friends. I want you to go to his page, Good Mic Work on YouTube.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries on YouTube.
But we would have fun. We would run around. There would be a wooden hoop we would hit with a stick, and it would go down a hill.
I'm about to go and watch a few videos myself.
It's a very practical apparatus.
We're really lacking in the world right now with some people that have a freaking brain cells.
And then now look at him. He has more YouTube views and subscribers than I do, and I'm fine with it because I played such an integral role in his upbringing.
Don't you dare be sour.
We always talked about wrestling. He was a big Lou Thez guy, and of course I had an affectation for the Hackenschmidts.
Clap for Good Mic Work Commentaries.
This is RJ City, a wrestling rock on tour.
And feel the power.
Listen to the podcast, subscribe.
You are watching Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good mic work commentaries.
Just want to encourage all you guys to check out Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And if you don't, we're gonna have a problem.
Do it!
Do it.
Do it now!
Thanks a lot for the encomium and the nice words about my father's Hall of Fame induction.
Hope our paths cross again sometime down the road. Would love to shake your hand again, and good luck on this podcast.
And you don't just watch it one time. You can rewatch every single one of them.
And now, Good Mic Work Commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
Happy Saturday and happy Super Bowl weekend to everyone here in the United States. This is your Winged Eagle podcast for February 12th, 2022. Hope you guys are having a great afternoon and a great weekend so far. As was just pointed out to me in the chat, apparently this podcast is going head-to-head with UFC 271. Wasn't even aware UFC had a show today, and apparently that's happening right now. I apologize for you MMA fans who might have to decide who to watch today. But for those of you who are here, I'm glad you're here. A lot of stuff to get into. Going to be, kind of a medium-sized podcast. We're going to get into last night's Rampage and SmackDown. I also want to touch base a little bit back on this past week's Wednesday Night Dynamite, where we saw the debut of Keith Lee and Jay White coming into the company. Just a couple of hours ago, Mustafa Ali, tweeted out something very interesting. He says, "I guess I'll see y'all in about 2.5 years," which makes me think and possibly indicates that WWE has informed him that they will not be releasing him from his contract, and he has got to wait this thing out, which I guess has another 2.5 years left on it, which totally sucks. So we'll talk a little bit about that. A couple of other interesting news tidbits coming out during the week, including some of Vince McMahon's reasoning for wishing to reunite the New Day back together, Big E and Kofi, and quietly move Big E from Raw to SmackDown, essentially, eliminating him from the world title picture, which is sad. Apparently morale is way down in WWE at an all-time low. We'll talk a little bit about that. Mickie James, however, appears to be on pretty good terms with WWE and wouldn't even be surprised to see her back there one day. We'll talk a little bit about Tony Khan interviewing with Sports Illustrated and discussed the possibility of Shane McMahon coming into AEW, and his thoughts on that might surprise you a little bit. We're also going to talk a little bit about Saudi Arabia and WWE, touch on this past week's Raw, run through these ratings, and like I said, talk about last night's Rampage and SmackDown. And SmackDown, incidentally, was headlined by a phenomenal women's title match with Charlotte Flair and Naomi. That was great shit. So overall, it was a pretty decent week of wrestling, and we have a fair amount of stuff to talk about. But like I said, I want to concentrate a little bit on Dynamite as well, because we definitely have to talk Keith Lee. We got to talk about Jay White. We have to talk about that bonkers main event between Adam Page and Lance Archer, which was just crazy, and a lot of other possibilities in AEW heading into Revolution. And next week's Dynamite is stacked up huge. They have, I believe, 5 matches for the card announced for next week, including a TNT title match between Sammy Guevara and Darby Allin. That's going to be nuts. So yeah, lots of stuff to get into, and it should be a fun afternoon. I'm going to say hi to everyone here in the chat. I'm going to cruise over to Patreon and shout out the patrons, let you guys know my schedule, what to expect this coming week out of me on the channel, and then we'll start rolling into the news. I have not done a sound check, so let me make sure I can be heard. It looks like I can. Want to say hello to Wrestle Spider. How Wheezy in the house. Right on. Dynamite was a blast. That's right. You were there, and that was a great venue for Dynamite to be in. We'll talk about that in a minute. Tatanati in the house. Sam, Zane G, Jay Lambo, Lil Justin, Rodrigo. We've got Andy Linnell, Chaz Medarius. Thank you, man. Good. Glad you're here. Big J, the legendary Bigfoot. You were the one telling me about UFC 271. Damn it, I'll watch later. It's UFC 271 time. We'll have a good time watching that. Hope you can check out the replay on demand. Michael Kumo's in the house. We got David Brown. Right on, man. So glad you are here. And Devlin Husband hanging out with us today from Hawaii. Sonic Plays. Mike Witt. Michael Kumo dropping in $5 early. Thank you for that, man. Just met Jerry Lynn, the Sandman, and Tony Gurria. All awesome guys. That's an interesting trio right there. Of a couple of different generations. That's cool. Tony Gurria, man, I don't even know how old he is these days. I'd say pushing 80. That's really awesome. 3 randoms, random names that I didn't expect to see on today's podcast. George Morris is here. What's up, dude? Thank you for the $5. Hey, Greg, how are you doing? What are you doing for the Super Bowl? Tomorrow I'm ordering pizza for me and Elizabeth, my awesome girlfriend. Be safe. Your girlfriend's name is Elizabeth, too. Well, that's cool. Yeah, who do you guys got for Super Bowl tomorrow? It's Bengals and Rams. I am pretty much indifferent about it, although I'm probably going to root for the Rams because LA is just right up the road from me, and Matt Stafford spent many, many years in Detroit, the city of my birth, and I'm still pretty loyal to all the Detroit teams. So even though the Lions suck balls, I root for them. So poor Matt Stafford had to put up with a lot of shit in Motown for a decade plus. He deserves a ring, and I think he's good enough and has the skills to get one. So I'm going to be rooting for Stafford and the Rams tomorrow. But if the Bengals win, that's fine, man. I actually remember the last time they were in the Super Bowl in 1988, because I remember talking about it on the school bus the next day, and I remember my buddy who was rooting for the Bengals. I was rooting for the 49ers. We were calling each other after each score. I think that was the first year of the they did like the Bud Bowl, where they did like the beer bottles having a football game or something. So I remember 1988 well. So if the Bengals, pull off the upset and win tomorrow, no big deal. They definitely deserve it too. In terms of what I'm doing something kind of fun tomorrow. I'm actually going to be with my family, with my parents. Today is my mom's 70th birthday. So we're going to be going out to dinner with her tonight for her birthday. But what she doesn't know is that my parents tomorrow are having a Super Bowl party for all of their friends to come over to the house and watch the game. But my mom doesn't know that the family is going to be coming over as well. So myself, my sisters, their spouses, my girlfriend, I'm making this big care. I've got this big cake being made for her that we're just going to show up to the house, and it's going to kind of be her surprise of all of us showing up in addition to the Super Bowl party they're already having. And so I'm going to be with the fam tomorrow, and it should be a blast. That's why I don't really care who wins, but kind of going to go for Matt Stafford tomorrow. So that's what's on tap for me, which is why also no watch along tomorrow, obviously, because we're not going to do a watch along on the same day as the Super Bowl, because ain't nobody going to be watching me. So we'll see. We got a lot of Bengals fans in here. Yeah, you know what? If they win, I love having a situation where I really don't care. I've spent a lot of Super Bowls with friends of mine, one in particular who is a huge Patriots fan, and he hosted Super Bowl parties for about 6 years in a row, and I had to sit here with that guy and watch him celebrate 4 Super Bowl wins by his annoying fucking team, and I could not stand it. So it's going to be nice tomorrow to not give a shit who wins. I just hope I win a few bucks when we do the pool or the squares or the gambling or whatever we do. That might be nice, but but until then, until we know who wins, I'm just going to say go Matt Stafford. You probably want a prediction out of me too, so let's do that. They're in LA. The Rams are in their own freaking building here, so let's go Rams. You know what? I think both these quarterbacks can handle the big time. The Bengals guy is young, but he's kind of cocky. He got a swagger to him, so I don't think he's going to sweat the big time. Neither will Stafford, who's kind of a veteran, kind of knows situations and stuff, and probably isn't going to be too stressed out by this. But I still think Super Bowl jitters will play a role, and even if you do have a high-octane offense or something like that, you're probably not going to be putting 48 points on the board. So I'm going to go Rams 24, Bengals 18. Let's go with a weird number. 24-18, win by 6. I don't know where I got that number from. I'm going to be way off on that, but that's what I predict. Rams 24, Bengals 18. So let's get into the Patreon shout-outs, see if there's anybody else in here that needs to be acknowledged, and then we'll start rolling into the wrestling news. Good to see Eric Mural in here as well. Jermaine, welcome. Spartan Sprinkles, Red Raven Rucker. David, Hosea, Yachiro, Alex. Don't think I got you guys earlier. Right on. Glad you are here, and thanks for being here. Cruise over to the Patreon page real quick. Thank you to all of the current subscribers on the Patreon channel. I appreciate it. I actually have a Patreon-sponsored video in the works right now for WrestleMania season that's going to be a lot of fun, courtesy of Reese Jones. But I also want to thank MJ Parker, Kaylin Scott, Divine Ricks, JJ Legg, Darren Piper, Nikita Abalakin, Chris Miner, Super Fluffy Toaster, Deshaun Robinson, Martin Can, J Smooth 99, Apron Bump Podcast, Alan Carter, Nick Musser, Jimmy Anderson, K-Dog's Kennel, Ryan Y, Devlin Husband, John Redifer, Claudio Clavedetzer, Reese Jones, Barry MK 400, Josiah Blevins, John Riffle, Michael Kumo, Blake Moran, Keith Salyers, and Naveed. Thank you very much, as always, guys, for your months and years of support on the Patreon channel. Smash that thumbs up button if you don't mind, and please subscribe if you are not a subscriber. So, the plan for this week, like I said, no watch along tomorrow. I'm going to play Raw by ear. As of right now, I don't plan on being here for a Raw review on Monday, but I might be. After that, we'll definitely be back up here on Wednesday for the Dynamite watch along. And then next week is also going to be weird because we have Crown Jewel coming up 1 week from today. I'm not going to be here for Crown Jewel. I'm not going to watch it or do a review on it because it's my girlfriend Elizabeth's 40th birthday. Today is my mom's 70th. Next Saturday is my girlfriend's 40th. So big day planned, obviously, so I'm not going to be watching Blood Money Chamber and not doing a review on it either. So it's possible I could come up the next day and give my thoughts on it, maybe in a mic drop type of format or maybe a quick review. But also, Sundays are generally watch-along days, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do a watch-along next Sunday either. So we might be skipping tomorrow and the following Sunday before we pick up the WrestleMania watch-alongs heading into WrestleMania. But because I'm not quite sure what I'm doing a week from tomorrow, I don't want to commit to anything. So I'm either going to try to do a Crown Jewel quick review. I keep saying Crown Jewel. Elimination Chamber quick review, or we'll try to squeeze in a watch-along, but I'm not sure. I'm also dealing with a sick cat. Many of you know my two cats, Tito and Bub. My oldest, who is 12 and a half, is not doing well at all, and that situation is constantly changing in terms of how well he's doing. So I don't really know what the future holds for him either, so there's probably going to be a situation where I'm going to have a podcast or a video planned that I'm going to have to cancel because of him. So, there's a lot going on here. So just make sure, it's probably more important than ever to please subscribe to the channel, and make sure you shoot me a follow over on Twitter, because I'm always announcing, schedule changes and video plans over there as well. So make sure you stay tuned, subscribe, so you can keep up to date on everything I got going on this week. I think that's it for all the pleasantries and the house cleaning stuff. We can start getting into the news. Now, up until a couple of hours ago, my news was pretty light. The only thing I was really going to discuss was Tony Khan's Sports Illustrated interview, where he discussed a little bit about Shane McMahon possibly coming to AEW one day. I want to talk about the low morale story that Fightful had reported on, and some of the New Day stuff with Vince McMahon. That was really all I was going to get into before we started talking about Dynamite, Raw, SmackDown, Rampage, that sort of stuff. But just a couple of hours ago, over on Mustafa Ali's Twitter page, he tweets out the following, and I quote, "I guess I'll see y'all in about 2.5 years. That's it." Which indicates or implies that he must have had some sort of a conversation or discussion with WWE management or officials, where they have informed him that they are not going to release him from his contract, or at least not let him go right now. And if he's saying, "I'll see y'all in about 2.5 years," that tells us that's how much time is likely left on his current deal that he has signed with WWE. So we've already heard the news of them not wanting to let him go, and we knew that last month, he tweeted out a video where he informed all of us that he has asked WWE for his release. They elected not to give it to him at the time, but we said here, even on the podcast, I said, just because they're not releasing him right now doesn't mean they're not going to release him at all. They might want to think about it. They might want to talk to him. They might want to see if maybe things can be rectified and he can stick around and they can move him into a proper direction. And then if nothing else works, then they'll let him go. So I guess maybe some of these conversations have continued to happen. Ali is not budging on anything. He either wants what he wants or he wants to leave, and WWE's not willing to give him either, but they're also not willing to release him. Now, this, of course, is going to piss off a lot of the fans. It's going to piss off me. It's going to piss off you guys. It's going to piss off all of us, because it comes off as a hugely asshole-ish thing for WWE to do, to purposely make this guy stay there who doesn't want to stay there. And I always found that really almost insulting, especially when you're in the line of work that pro wrestlers are, where your body, is your job, and your body breaks down and it gets older and it slows down the more years go by. And so whenever you're young and you're in the prime of your career and you want to go out there and do things, but you can't, because you're under the weight of this contract, that really sucks to see good years of wrestlers' lives being wasted away. I don't want to see that for anybody. But at the same time, as asshole-ish as this fuckhead clown show, aka WWE, is being in terms of not releasing Ali, this isn't exactly like a hostage situation. One guy on Twitter was tweeting the Saudi government about WWE holding a Muslim man hostage or whatnot. I mean, let's chill a little bit here. I understand that WWE, it's frustrating as hell to watch them be such dicks, but they're not kidnappers. This is not a real hostage situation. Ali is not being forced to do anything against his will. They are keeping him under contract, which WWE, as bad as it sucks, has every right to do, and they're paying him. So keeping somebody employed and paying them is not exactly the same thing as a hostage situation. So I think the fans need to relax a little bit on that. Now, I agree, it's douchey as hell. WWE should just let him go. It makes zero sense. No matter what they're trying to convince themselves, or no matter what they're trying to tell WWE, or whatever bullshit reason they're making up in their heads as to why they should keep Ali around, it is not, as bad as all of that sucks, it's not a gun to the head type of thing where they're forcing him to do anything or holding him hostage. This is just business. Now, I think they're idiots for thinking that there's some sort of value they're going to lose in Ali. Ali is a great wrestler. There should be no reason why he shouldn't be every bit as big of a star as someone like Seth Rollins. What can Seth Rollins do in the ring or say on the mic that Ali can't? Answer me that in the chat. That's what I want to know. So Ali's got potential through the roof. WWE has never seen this potential, much like Cesaro and a lot of other guys we could list. You know, Ali has just been one of those names that WWE has not been able to figure out because they're idiots. And as we saw this past week on Dynamite, sometimes there's nothing to figure out. It blows my mind that a company like this couldn't figure out a way to take Keith Lee, somebody that had a hell of a run in NXT, was over putting on good matches, and had very little wrong with his presentation, you know, or what he was doing in the ring. They bring him up to the main roster, and they literally try to change him from head to toe from the minute he walks into the doors of Monday Night Raw. They finally screw around it with him for a year, leave him off TV for a fucking decade, and then finally release him. He goes to AEW, signs with them, comes out on Dynamite, and what does he do? Keith Lee goes out there and wrestles a Keith Lee match. Crowd was into it. Crowd was going nuts. Commentary sold the shit out of it. Isaiah Cassidy made Keith Lee look like $1 trillion. And he accomplished more and was over more in a 6-minute segment on Dynamite than his entire year-plus run on WWE's main roster. It ain't rocket science. You know, just put him out there. Let him wrestle. Let him do his thing. There's nothing to get. There's nothing to figure out. You know, he's Keith Lee. He's a proven star, and he can work, and he can go. And for a big man, it's so refreshing to see a Vader and Bam Bam Bigelow type of big guy in the ring in 2022 doing these things and wrestling at a high level. You know, I think Keith Lee should fast-track himself to some gold pretty quickly in AEW. He's already in that ladder match. He's probably going to win the TNT title at some point. Imagine Keith Lee destroying Sammy Guevara, you know, on Dynamite, or maybe even down the road at Double or Nothing, probably on TV though, and winning the TNT title. What a debut for him. It was done so well, pulled off so great, and it took very little thought. All you have to do is let him go out there and do his thing. So WWE proves time and time again that the simplest of things is extremely difficult for them. Sometimes the easiest things to understand, they are completely baffled by. So it's no surprise that there's a guy with unlimited potential here like Ali that WWE just can't figure out, you know? So after months and years of WWE just fumbling around with this guy, he now wants to be released. He's never done, even with the Retribution stuff, he's never done enough on TV, in my mind, to where WWE would suffer any if they let him go. WWE has gotten to themselves to the point where even if one of their big stars left, I don't think really at the end of the day it would affect them that much. Even if Randy Orton left, sure, that would be a void, but it wouldn't be, you know, a void that maybe would have been left 20 years ago when Austin, you know, or Hogan even was carrying the company, and you lose one of them, you know, that can be a big deal. WWE has purposely, you know, designed their business model to never have to rely or ride on the shoulders of one person ever again. That's too risky, you know, so they're never going to create a star to that level to where them leaving the company can kill the company. They're never going to be there again. Even Roman. Yes, even Roman. Now, if Roman left, quit WWE tomorrow and went to AEW, that would be a huge deal. That might even be a needle-moving type of deal at first, but at the end of the day, the WWE is still WWE, and despite the loss of Roman Reigns, they're still going to be bringing in billions of dollars in revenue at the end of the year, even with a loss like that. So I don't understand why they think that the company is better off keeping Ali around and paying him. There isn't anything that tells me that WWE is just doing what WWE needs to do. This reeks of spite. This reeks of them just not wanting to accept that people don't want to fucking be there. And unlike before when they were in talent hoarding mode and they could maybe afford to keep guys around like FTR and Brody Lee and maybe a few others who are asking for their release, what the hell is their excuse now? When they released 120 wrestlers in the last 48 months, you know, and they have really been downsizing a lot from a talent perspective and even a spending perspective. So it would seem like any amount of money that the company can save they would do that. That's kind of what Nick Khan is there to do. So there doesn't seem to me, and probably to none of you either, to be a valid reason, like a real, true, valid reason where you can say, okay, I kind of understand now why WWE doesn't want to let him go. If anything like that was presented to me, I'd be more than happy to look at it. But I just can't think of any reasoning that WWE would have for keeping Ali around. If they let him go and he went and signed with AEW or Impact, or he went to Japan, or he just went and worked the indies for a while, explain to me one way that would be harmful to WWE at all. Maybe it's because they know he's going to be one of those guys that's going to have a lot to say. Hell, I want to hear what Keith Lee has to say. Get this guy on Talk is Jericho or Oral Sessions with Renee or whatever other podcast is out there that can bring on a guest and let them air out some of the shit that was going on during their final days in WWE. I don't want to hear necessarily Keith Lee bury or drag or, complain and bitch and whine about WWE. I want to hear the real things that happened. I want to hear about the shit that he was put through. And so maybe WWE knows that Ali, even more so than Keith Lee, and maybe even more so than a lot of guys, has been fucked with a lot there. And if he leaves, he's going to have a lot to say about WWE. Maybe that's their hesitation. I mean, I don't know if they can release him and make him sign a gag order or something like that. All right, if we'll let you go, but don't go on a podcast and talk about how bad we suck. I mean, that's really the only reason I can think of that WWE would have a legitimate reason for keeping him around. Not because Ali is going to sound like a bitter, disgruntled former employee that's just, full of piss and vinegar and just wants to air out his hatred to WWE. I think all Ali is going to do is tell the fucking truth. He doesn't seem like a bitter, vindictive guy. If he's on a podcast and they ask him questions about his final days in WWE, I think he's going to answer them truthfully and basically just tell the story of what happened. That's all he's going to do. And WWE probably isn't going to like the truths that are going to be told. So maybe that's why they're holding it off, because they know that when he speaks, they are going to look terrible. So they might want to get ahead of it like they did with everybody else. All of a sudden, you'll start hearing shit that Ali was difficult to work with or whatnot. Seems like Ali, Keith Lee, and others have been incredibly patient with WWE changing their minds every 5 seconds, sticking them in different gimmicks, ideas, ring gear, and even starting an angle and then dropping it like they did with the Hager deal with Ali. What other reason could there really be credible, legitimate reason for WWE keeping Ali around other than we just don't want him to leave, talk bad about us, and make us look bad? WWE, you don't need Ali to do that. You make yourselves look bad every damn second of the fucking day. It is a clown show, this company. And that's going to kind of tie into the next thing we're going to talk about here in terms of, the overall morale and mood, so to speak, in the locker room right now. There's a lot of people just really disgruntled and kind of deflated in terms of the direction of the company because it's just all over the place and you can't get anything done. Even if you speak up and say, hey, this doesn't make sense, it falls on deaf ears and everybody is just at the mercy of the whims of a kooky 70-plus-year-old billionaire. And that is a very dangerous place to be. So props to anybody that is doing good things there, that actually enjoys their time there, that's making some good money, because if I'm a wrestler, I am using WWE for money and nothing more. I'm certainly not looking to, satisfy myself, my creative, the creative portion of my spirit by being in WWE. You're not going to get that there. It's a good place to go to get exposure and get some money, and hopefully that will help you in whatever your other endeavors are in life, because in terms of, WWE being this family operation, and if you're there, you're part of the family, and you can create this great legacy for yourself and go into the Hall of Fame. You can work there for 20 years now, and they'll just release you tomorrow like it's nothing. So it is, it's just a very kind of unpleasant and unkind place to be, unless you are... There are people there who are in really good spots. Think of Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, who just re-signed with the company. Kevin Owens is doing shit every single week on TV, and Sami Zayn is probably heading into WrestleMania to face Johnny fucking Knoxville. So some people, it's really best to stay where they are, but not for everyone. So it'll be interesting to see, with this latest batch of free Ali tweets that have come around because of Ali's tweet today, and it's going to get more people talking, and it's going to get a lot of people, sending a lot of angry and hate-filled comments towards WWE's way. Hopefully, these things will pressure WWE to potentially do the right thing here in the future and let him go. In my mind, it feels like WWE is just toying with him. They refuse to be controlled because that's the way they are. And even though Ali tweets out, I guess I'll see y'all in about 2.5 years, I would really find it hard to believe that WWE would keep him on the payroll for 2.5 years and not use him at all. So I think what they're doing is just making him sweat it out. I think whatever happened, if they told him we're not going to release you from your contract, that they will release him eventually. It might not be for 6 months. It might not be for a year. They're just going to do what they do because they suck. Now, it will be interesting to see him turn up on TV. If they say, hey, if they bring him to TV, hey, we need you. We want to start something with you. We want to do make this new angle, and he's just not having it. I'm not really sure, where the stopping point there is. I don't know if he's just not refusing to do anything, or if he's telling them, give me something decent and I'll think about it, or just, no, I'm not interested in anything you have for me. I don't trust you. You've been given 35 opportunities to do something with me, and you've failed every single time. You're out of chances. I want out. Please let me go. If that's the type of deal. So we'll keep our eye on it. We'll see, what WWE does down the road here and how long Ali is going to have to stay invisible, because if he's tweeting things like this, makes me think that he's not on the best terms with the company. Makes me think that he's not going to be coming in to do anything unless I just don't trust WWE to be able to do this properly, but unless they are turning this situation into an angle, unless they're turning this into Ali forming a new character on TV where he wants to be released, or maybe even a new Retribution thing. Because now, if they were to start Retribution 4 months from now, then it would make more sense, wouldn't it? Because we would hear about all these Ali release requests, and we'd see his frustration. The fans would get talking. And according to the wrestling audience and the IWC and wrestling Twitter, Ali is a pretty miserable guy right now, and he can't get let go from WWE. So if behind the scenes they quietly work things out between the parties and they're like, okay, let's bring this to TV now. And then we cut to the back of the building during Raw, because remember, no more Thunderdome. The fans are back now. We cut to the back of the building of Raw, and we see all of these hooded figures in black throwing Molotov cocktails at the fucking production truck, knocking out power to the arena. They hit the ring and chainsaw the ropes down. That might be a little bit more interesting and a little bit less hokey, because when that little fucker, wasn't it like the little short guy, whichever one it was, Bisquick, came out there with that chainsaw and he's got it over his head and he's carrying on the ropes, I burst out laughing so hard that whatever seriousness and excitement I had for whatever this new faction is, maybe the week before, was completely killed when little Chainsaw Man came in there. So I think now this would all make so much more sense, because Ali, even though we knew he was probably a disgruntled guy, he didn't really have that much reason to get retribution against the company. But now he specifically is asking for something and they are taking it away from him. So it seems like a retribution angle now would maybe even be a little bit fun if done right. That's the key phrase, if done right. And the WWE can't wipe its ass right, much less, write some sort of compelling storyline that weaves reality in with fantasy. And, that's pretty good when you're able to pull something like that off, but I don't believe that WWE can pull anything like that off. So we'll see how long Ali stays silent. Unfortunately, we got WrestleMania coming up, so he probably won't be a part of that, won't be getting any of those paydays. So maybe WWE just hangs on to him until WrestleMania and then lets him go just to be a dick. Hey, watch all of your friends make money, and then right after the Tuesday after WrestleMania, we'll let you go. They just might do that. I could totally see it. guy's got a brand new, kid at home. He's, trying to raise his family. He's just trying to be happy. And I really hate to see people unhappy because I think we can all agree, you guys in the chat have all had jobs that we have hated. We've all had jobs where we just can't stand our boss, or we just have these spirit-breaking jobs, these deflating jobs that just make you miserable and bummed out. You don't want to wake up in the morning. You don't want to go to work. You don't wish that type of shit on anyone. So whenever you're in a situation where you just really, really, really hate where you work, that's an unhealthy mental place to be in. Now, I think with Ali, it's a little bit different. It's not like he's stuck in some minimum wage jobs with thousands of dollars of bills piling on his head and the weight of that crushing him and fucking him up. He's financially fine, and he's got a good job, and he makes good money, and he's supporting his family. But, true happiness isn't just about that. True happiness is also about, you being happy and at peace with yourself. And if you're miserable with where you work, it's really hard to achieve that, one would assume. So just whatever happens here, we here, all of you guys in the chat, I'm sure, at Good Mike Work Commentaries, we wish Ali nothing but the best, regardless of what happens to him, whether he sticks around and gives it one more go in another angle or storyline in WWE, or if he just waits it out, WWE eventually caves, lets him go, maybe waits until some of this blows over to where the backlash won't be so bad when he leaves and inevitably does a podcast talking about what idiots they are. That's to me got to be, that to me has to be the biggest reasoning behind them holding him back and keeping him under contract, because otherwise, why would they? It wouldn't hurt them at all to let him go, which is what we've been saying. So anyway, best of luck to Mustafa Ali. Hope everything works out for you, man. My God. But speaking of WWE and some of the nonsense going on behind the scenes, yesterday, Fightful Select published an article about Vince McMahon's reasoning for splitting up and reuniting the New Day. Now, of course, we've seen the New Day split up, I believe, twice in drafts, right? And the most recent time sent Big E to Raw by himself, where he won Money in the Bank and went on to win the WWE title, which was great. Dude played the role perfectly. Everybody was happy about his win. Everybody was willing to give him a shot. He was everywhere promoting WWE. He was at sporting events, on talk shows, and, being guest of honor here and there and doing everything he could. It seems like he was really into playing that role that you have to play when you are a babyface WWE champion like a John Cena. You got to go out there and promote the company and, most importantly, represent the company, which I think he did better than a lot of guys in recent history. He is a great person, if you're WWE, to be sending out there as your representation, as your champion. Here's a guy that's representing us, because Big E's a great guy. So he did all of that. But of course, they went back with the direction of Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, and Lesnar won the WWE title at day one. And since then, Big E has done very little. He received no rematch, and then he was quietly moved back over to SmackDown, where he's now teaming again with Kofi Kingston, essentially moving and eliminating him completely from the world title picture on either brand for the moment. And now that he's back with Kofi in a tag team, no less, and they took an L last night on SmackDown to the Los Jose Lotharios, what the fuck is going on? So Fightful elaborated on this a little bit, and here's what they say about Vince McMahon making the decision to break up and reunite the team. So it says here, a New Day member, Big E, has been moved to SmackDown to rejoin his New Day teammates. In an interesting note, we're told that Vince McMahon was adamant that Kofi Kingston and Big E not be referred to as New Day. Think about that. And instead be called Big E and Kofi Kingston, which was how they were announced on Big E's first week back. And I believe that's how they were announced last night as well, right? However, internally and on the company's YouTube, apparently that message didn't get through as they were listed as New Day on both. However, the following week, that had been changed. Speaking of Vince McMahon being adamant, we're told he was adamant about putting the trio back together because he, quote, missed the magic that they created together, end quote. However, we're also told that he had preferred they be split in the previous two drafts under the idea that a top babyface should be on their own in most situations, referencing Big E, of course. We're told there were numerous pitches made to keep them together despite that, but it didn't do much good. So it sounds like a lot of the creative team wanted to keep New Day on the same roster, but you can still move Big E to singles. Vince didn't want that. He split them up. Now Big E is back on SmackDown. For some reason, an 8-year-old now faction, New Day, Vince McMahon doesn't want them being referred to as New Day. Why? Because Xavier Woods is on the shelf for a bit. So now it's just Big E and Kofi. And if you notice, they weren't even color coordinated in their outfits last night. Normally they're all, they match and everything. And it seems like that kind of is, fallen away a little bit. So I don't understand why he would care that you would call them Big E and Kofi instead of New Day. They're still part of New Day. New Day never really did break up. The only time they did break up is when they were forced to split due to drafts, but we all know what horseshit drafts are. So now that they're back, this is just another perfect example of Vince McMahon making decisions that just doesn't make any sense. There's no reason for him to even give a fuck about what you call them, Like, why would he even think, with all the things that Vince McMahon has got to do? He's the head of this company. Think of the meetings and the shit he's got to think about every day. And to worry about stuff like this, about what to call a tag team, an already well-established tag team that's been around your company for close to a decade, and then 1 week where he's just going to say, we're not going to call them that anymore. Let's call them by their names. None of this matters. No, none of this matters. Fans are still going to call them New Day. New Day, or Los Lotharios defeats New Day is in my SmackDown notes for later on. So fuck you, Vince. It's just, things like that are not a big deal really at the end of the day, but just when you hear a decision like that and Vince insisting that we need to call them Kofi and Big E, even though at the end of the day, that's a stupid Vince decision that isn't going to do a whole lot to really matter. But why? Why even make that call? Why even give a shit? This company makes me dizzy, real dizzy. Now, after, hearing that type of stuff, and we've talked about the Big E stuff, and we've talked about, some of the fucked up stuff going on in creative and the Ali shit and some of the unhappy talent and basically, morale in the company likely not being very high. And Fightful published another article on this, which they also kind of elaborated on a couple of weeks ago, right after the Royal Rumble, right after Shane McMahon and that whole controversy went down. There was a whole story published about how morale in WWE is pretty much at an all-time low in terms of the locker room. So they elaborated a little bit more on this week on Fightful, where they basically reiterated what was reported a couple of weeks ago after the Rumble, that a lot of talent there is really frustrated with the direction. It sounds like it's a complete shit show. And most of all, anytime you try to speak up or try to say, hey, I don't know if this makes sense, it's never acted upon. It's just brushed off, blown off. They do what they want with very, very little input from the talent, with very, very little input from the people actually going out there and executing these storylines, segments, promos, or whatnot. The fact that they're allowed so little in terms of creative changes or creative input or suggestions or anything like that speaks volumes just to the arrogance and the bubble that the monkeys in this company live in. You should listen to the wrestlers. You don't have to give them full control. We're not talking AEW here. Don't let them go out there and just do whatever they want. But they are wrestlers. They have been doing this for a long time. They're the ones out there in front of the people. They probably have a better idea what works and what doesn't in terms of crowd interaction than some fucking writer that doesn't know the name of the fucking champion. So when you hear stuff like that, it blows my mind. And it would be so... it would just be such a spirit breaking and deflating type of experience to be a wrestler that wants so badly to try to make them listen and say, look, can we just do it like this? I'm telling you, it's going to get a 10 times better response. I'm like, no. Bruce and Vince are set in their ways and they're just going to do it like that. It's got to be mind numbing. It's got to be just misery in terms of that, if you are a wrestler that does care about this stuff, that does care about shit making as much sense as possible, where you're just shot down at every turn, no matter what you suggest. It's got to be just and that's what I've been talking about before when we have brought up the subject of morale and stuff. I said, you can put it in, you can relate it to your own job. If you have a job that you hate, like we just talked about a minute ago, if you have a job that you hate, if you have an overbearing boss, if you have a boss that makes decision after decision that makes no fucking sense, And with every decision they make harms their company even more. And everything that you're trying to do to help the company, is being squashed by people doing more harm to it than good. So what is your motivation then? If you're working for a place like that, what's your motivation to wake up every morning and go to work and do the best you can to make that business as profitable as possible? None. If you got an owner that's just fucking shit up, you're probably going to start taking the attitude of, okay, I'm just going to get up every day and go to work and earn my paycheck. That's it. I don't care, how the company does. I don't care if the company is successful. I don't care if the boss is happy, because obviously all the hard work I do, everything I try to do, whenever I try to do the job they hired me to do, it's all for nothing. It just seems like it would kill your motivation, and it would, just murder any sort of desire you have to go out there and be the best, to go out there and make the company you're working for the best. We've made the comparisons many times between WWE and WCW back in the day and WWE and AEW now. And it feels like AEW more resembles like that WWE Attitude Era locker room. Because back then in WCW, that's where all the legends were, the guys living off the contracts with creative control. Nobody was in charge because Eric Bischoff let the guys walk all over him. And you had Nash and Hall and Hogan with ridiculous contracts, where they could book their own finishes and reject ideas and all that shit. And it was such a clusterfuck that it showed on TV. You could tell that the product was just so discombobulated. And you would hear the stories about that, how they would be writing the show day of Nitro. The show would be starting live on TNT and you don't have the main event figured out yet. Shit like that would blow my mind when I read it. I'm like, how did this company even survive as long as it did? Having, being this way, where WWE seemed much more together. You had Vince McMahon who was in charge. You had writers there that were committed to developing characters, developing storylines, making storyboards for everybody, making sure that everybody had a direction, something to do, and was doing something to evolve or grow as a character everywhere across top, middle, and bottom of the card. That's what they were doing. It ain't like that now. WWE resembles a lot more of those final days of WCW, where it was a clusterfuck, but instead of, having a guy that, was letting people walk all over him, instead of that, you just have some crazy millionaire and crazy motherfucker who thinks that his way is the only way, and it's creating the same type of damage in WWE that Bischoff's incompetence was creating in WCW back in the day, where in AEW, things are a little bit more together, especially in terms of talent morale. And look at the shows. The shows are planned out. They have thought coming in here. We already have, 5 matches lined up for Dynamite this week? What do we got here for Dynamite this week? Listen to this shit. We've got Sammy Guevara and Darby Allin for the TNT title. We got Thunder Rosa and Mercedes Martinez in a no DQ match. We got Jericho and Hager taking on Santana and Ortiz. And we've got Bryan Danielson against Lee Moriarty. And we have a Face of Revolution qualifying match, Wardlow and Caster. 5 matches already announced on tap for Wednesday. WWE isn't going to know what the fuck they're doing until lunch on Monday. They're going to know, they might have their opening segment figured out by then. Is Raw even on Sci-Fi this week, or is it back on USA? I don't know. But it's that type of stuff. It's the fact that they just have it a little bit more together. They're trying to think about things a little bit more, plan out storylines, do a little bit better in terms of, developing your characters and your storylines, long-term booking, shit like that, where WWE is just 50-50 booking and formulaic each and every show, to where you don't really have to advertise anything because you already know you're going to see a bunch of shit where nobody gets over, and it's a match that's just there on TV, made for 5-year-olds. It really is. So I think that when you compare those companies and the way they are, it really does kind of resemble a lot of what WWE used to criticize WCW for way back in the day. And it feels like it's got a lot of that just, disorganization backstage and very, very unhappy campers, many of them in the company. It's just got to not be a great place to be. If, unless you're a top 5 talent, you don't have it very good in WWE. It doesn't seem like, from a creative standpoint, but who knows? Hopefully WWE will, will one day turn things around. All this morale shit, this has nothing to do with any sort of taking sides, tribalism, any bias, anything like that. Because if the roles are reversed here, hey, I'd be perfectly fine with acknowledging that too. I just talked about how AEW really has been doing a good job of just planning out their shows. It's refreshing to see a company that will actually strive to be the best it can be on a weekly basis. That's the way Raw used to be back in the day. Every week on Monday Night Raw, when they were running head-to-head with Nitro, and then they really started getting cooking when Austin won the title and they started winning in the ratings, it really did feel like WWE tried to outdo themselves from the previous week. It certainly isn't like that now. They don't give a shit about outdoing anything anymore. Where in AEW, you feel that because they're new and they're hungry, and they're trying to create success for this company. So they are doing a better job in terms of planning things out and actually trying to present the best product to their audience. WWE doesn't feel like they try. And it amazes us and it amazes me as a fan what can be accomplished when you do try. Look at what we saw this past Monday on Dynamite. Holy shit. A lot of these Dynamites feel like pay-per-views. That Paige and Archer main event, some of those bumps were the damnedest thing I've ever seen. Plus, we had a Forbidden Door commercial break and then Keith Lee punching us right in the face. Surprises, things we didn't expect to happen or at least happen when they did. I mean, Jay White and Keith Lee, 5 minutes apart. I didn't see that coming. They really try to make each show special. Does Raw or SmackDown feel special at all in any way? No. Even if they make a Legends Raw or a Raw Homecoming and they try to make it special, even those are formulaic. Even when they bring in or run one of those Raws where they parade legends out there, even those come off as formulaic and the same shit. You bring legends out there to virtually do nothing. They're not really a part of the show. They don't get involved in any sort of fun way. They're just backstage eating worms with the boogeyman or something. It's ridiculous. So it amazes me how little they try, and they seem to be fine with it because at the end of every quarter and at the end of every year, when they report their financial earnings, they're breaking records, setting all-time highs. So when you see that stuff, what really is WWE's motivation to give a fuck at all? They don't have any. So it is nice that we now have a choice. It is nice that there is another company out there, which we didn't have before, and they're, bringing in respectable ratings. They're putting on good shows. Not everything they do is a home run. AEW's got plenty of their own problems, but I'll take AEW and some of their problems over the type of WWE problems we have right now. And if anything gets reversed down the road, if WWE sells to Disney and changes ownership, and maybe Vince takes a step back and some other people creatively drive the company, and by then AEW is a few years older, some people start leaving the company. All of a sudden, all this great team effort morale that was once there and was a burning fire is now maybe subsided a little bit. And now WWE is starting to tip the scales. Hey, if that starts happening down the road, I will be the first one to come up here and do a podcast about it. This has nothing to do with me preferring one wrestling company over another. Or me caring about one wrestling company over another. Right now, I prefer AEW over WWE, but if AEW starts giving me better shit than AEW does, then I'll prefer WWE over them. I don't care who's better, but I am going to acknowledge which one is. And right now, AEW is doing things head and shoulders better than WWE in terms of their weekly TV. WWE still has very strong champions. They have an amazingly, stupidly good talent roster despite all the people they have let go, and they still come through in a lot of pay-per-views. WrestleMania will probably be pretty good. Royal Rumble was decent, even though the Rumble match itself was shit. Some of the show was pretty good. The Roman and Seth stuff was good. I like the Lashley and Brock stuff. I was at SummerSlam this past year in Vegas. That was a blast. WWE can still do some things right, but in terms of tuning into their show every week, you can skip every one. I haven't really watched straight through a Monday Night Raw, and in a few weeks, I've probably missed 5 out of the last 6, and I'm completely in the loop in terms of what's going on. You can't do that with Dynamite. If you would have missed last week, you would have missed all sorts of great shit. Where if you didn't watch SmackDown last night, you would have missed a great Charlotte and Naomi match, but other than that, you didn't miss much, and if you missed Raw, you didn't miss dick. So that's the big difference here, is you can actually not watch WWE and still keep up with it, where AEW does not give you that feeling. So, hopefully one day as this competition grows and these companies, keep fighting it out as years go by, we will see, the scales move a bit. At some point, AEW is going to maybe cool off and WWE is going to start getting their act together more, or vice versa. As a wrestling fan, it'll be fun to watch that shit unfold. That's what makes competition best, is the two big companies jockeying for that number one spot. That's what made WCW and WWE so fun back in the day. I would like to recreate that if we could. You got to remember, AEW's less than 3 years old. So it's, we're in its infancy here. So the fans that think, oh, AEW is really going downhill, or, oh, they only got 1 million rating, boy, they're really fucking up or something. I'm like, gee, a fucking 3-year-old company, a 3-year-old company pulling in ratings like this, attracting talent like this, to view this as anything other than positive is fucking insane, if you ask me. So anyway, I'll stop sucking AEW's dick now. We'll move on to Mickie James, because when it comes to everybody in WWE being so unhappy, one of the people that doesn't seem to have a problem with WWE is somebody that doesn't even work there, and that's Mickie James. We did see her appear in the Royal Rumble, of course, and we were all really curious about how that came together and how the deal came together, and we were wondering when she came out, is she going to be wearing the Impact Knockouts title? She did wear it, and they even played her I Am Country song, or whatever the fuck it is that she comes out to in Impact. So that was all cool. Well, she did an interview this week with Sportskeeda where she kind of elaborated on that deal coming together, saying that Vince McMahon approved all of it. He approved the belt and he approved the song, which was awesome. And she also spoke very highly of them in terms of how they handled themselves after Trash Bag Gate. And I've talked about this before in recent podcasts over the last month, that I was one of the people that very quickly forgave WWE for the trash bag thing because of what Mickie James said about it. It sounded like as soon as that was made public and that went viral, WWE fell all over themselves to apologize. They were remorseful. They reached out to her. Even Stephanie McMahon tweeted something. In the interview with Sportskeeda, Mickie James said that she was issued a personal apology by Nick Khan. She said Vince McMahon called her, and she missed calls from Stephanie, from Triple H, from John Laurinaitis when she was doing a photo shoot. Everybody just offering deep apologies for what had happened with the trash bag, and that's not who we are. We respect you a lot more than that. We're so sorry. We're so sorry. We're so sorry. And they even fired the person responsible. So I was one of the first people to come up on this show and say, you know what, WWE, it's all cool. At least they acknowledged what happened. At least they felt bad about it. At least it's not company-wide practice that they dump your shit in a trash bag and send it to your house. And if it is, WWE made it known that that's not okay, and the responsible party has been dealt with. And so I was making the case to the fans who kept complaining about this. I was actually defending WWE. I'm like, I don't know what else you guys want them to do. Yeah, it was a shitty situation, but what else was WWE supposed to do to make this right? Give her $1 million? They apologized out the ass. And Mickie James is smart. She used this, as a reason, because they contacted her, I guess, to be in the Royal Rumble. And she probably thought, after that trash bag stuff, they kind of owe me one. I could probably get what I want. Okay, fine. You want me for the Royal Rumble? No problem. I'm the current Knockouts champion. I want to wear the belt. Oh, by the way, I don't come out to your stupid song when I'm in other wrestling promotions. I come out to the song I sing. I want to use that too. If you guys will meet those terms, I'll be there. And of course, Vince McMahon was like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. Had Trash Bag Gate not happened, what do you think? Would they have done that? If Mickie made those requests, sorry, I got something in my eye. If Mickie James made those requests, and the trash bag thing had never happened, do you think that's something Vince McMahon would have gone for? I'm not sure. I think maybe not. So the fact that she accepted those apologies, she was able to come back into the company and work the Royal Rumble, see all of her friends, see people there, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Mickie James, someone of her stature, who's a veteran, I could see her going back there one day. I could see her going back there as a potential trainer, maybe even getting in the ring from time to time, or maybe even being, a manager of a faction, because unlike the men, the women have not had a secure, stable, and large talent roster decade after decade after decade. In the WWE especially, the women's division has come and gone. Sometimes there was a women's division and a champion. Sometimes there wasn't. And now that WWE has had a relatively strong women's roster, I would say for the past 20 years, you're going to get to the point now where you're going to have some getting older and retiring. We're seeing Lita come back. We saw Trish come back and work a couple of matches, and if Mickie James can, be one of those women too, you can start having Stings, Tully Blanchards, Jake Roberts, those type of legends like we see in AEW. You can start seeing some women like that now, because I saw somebody had mentioned that before about Lita, and it was I guess it was a tweet directed more towards more representation for the women. They're like, man, if Edge and some of these old timers or retired guys can come back for stints in their 50s, why can't the women do it? I don't think anybody's saying the women can't do it. The problem is there aren't any women. There's a few, you've got your Ivories, you got your Victorias, your Trishas, your Litas, your Mickeys, your Mollys, but you never had a super strong women's division to where you were creating legend after legend. You don't have Rocks and Stone Colds, and names like that in the women's division back in the day, but you're going to start seeing that now, especially when the current crop, wait 15 years, when the Beckys and the Sashas and the Charlottes are out of the ring and they start coming back to work with the younger talent, possibly manage one of them, possibly have a dream match. What Trish did with Charlotte a couple of years ago at SummerSlam, Charlotte's going to do the same thing to another girl, in 10, 15 years time, when Charlotte's basically out of the ring, and maybe not wrestling at all or part-time or is officially retired or what. She'll come back and she'll put over whatever champion they have at the time. That's what she should do. So I do think that you're going to see the Beckys and the Baileys and the Charlottes and women like that come back after, retirement, and when they're in their late 40s or maybe even 50s, and come back and work a match from time to time or be some sort of a presence on the show. I expect to see that. And Mickie James is one of those people that I think can always have something to offer, in terms of pro wrestling, based on how long she's been in it and how she's still capable physically of performing. But even when those days are gone, she still should have plenty to offer, and she knows it. So don't burn your bridges if you don't have to. I think it's awesome that Mickie James was able to make nice with WWE, and they felt bad, and they felt like they should have felt like shitheads for what they did. At least they owned up to it and said they were sorry and dealt with it. And every single top-notch executive in the company personally reached out to her. To me, all is forgiven with WWE. So I know I've been shitting on them for the last 30 minutes, but I will give them props for handling this Mickie James situation right, giving them props for allowing her to wear another wrestling company's championship belt out on their TV show. Nice job. See, WWE, you're not all bad. You're just like 99.9% bad. Okay, let's go back to them sucking. Have you seen, I guess there's some company-wide mandate that all of the talent had to tweet some Saudi propaganda shit where all of them said the same thing. It was a specific quote: WWE continues to influence the world. And there was about 2 or 3 dozen pieces of talent that tweeted out the exact same phrase. So what are they doing? Sending out an email, sending out a text message? Hey, everybody, tweet out this Saudi Arabia bullshit and make sure you include these words in this order. That is gross. Making your talent, forcing them to, spread and tweet out Saudi propaganda makes me feel fucking gross. And I am very happy I'm not going to watch that show next week. Man, especially if Goldberg beats Roman Reigns. Holy shit. But anyway, that was funny. Go on Twitter. You'll see it everywhere. WWE continues to influence the world. Hey, WWE, how about you influence D's nuts? That's what you can influence. Man, oh man. Also, Tony Khan did an interview this week with Sports Illustrated where he did mention and discuss the possibility of Shane McMahon coming into the company, because on Wednesday, his name was floating around. We were watching it live together on Wednesday night. Who's Tony Khan's big announcement? Is he going to come out here and announce this thing? Or are they just going to show up? And we saw Jay White and Keith Lee come in. We're like, okay, that's probably it. But during the day, Shane McMahon and Triple H's name were discussed. Now, I guess they had asked Tony Khan about Shane McMahon, and he said something that made me feel very good. He said that he's not sure if Shane would be a good fit. Thank God. What I did not want to hear Tony Khan say is, holy shit, I would do anything to bring Shane McMahon into the company. If he's listening to this, Shane, please call me. Let's work something out. That's what I didn't want to hear. Because as much as I like Shane McMahon, and I think of all the McMahons, he's the coolest, I don't want any McMahon anywhere near AEW. No, it doesn't even if you're cool, it's just too close. It's too close to WWE, and I don't want those fuckers infiltrating AEW. Now, I think other names would be much better. Someone like William Regal or somebody else coming in to maybe be an on-air type of authority role to bridge the gap between Tony Khan and that. Any announcements that need to be made publicly, they can come out and do that. I suggested William Regal having more of a Jack Tunney role or more of a William Regal in NXT role, because William Regal was not out there every week in NXT. He didn't need to be in 3 segments every show making decisions the way Sonya and Adam are now. We don't need that. But sometimes Tony Khan has announcements to make, so we thought, oh, maybe Shane McMahon could come in and be that person, but I think William Regal would even be better for that down the road. But luckily, it sounds like Shane McMahon will not be coming into AEW anytime soon, although Tony said he was a big fan and that he has not heard from him or anything. But if Shane called, he'd probably at least talk to him because the conversation would be interesting, but not sure if the fit would be great. He also went on to gush about Keith Lee and how excited he is for Keith Lee to be there. And it sounded really cool to hear Tony Khan talk about that, because he said as soon as WWE released him, he got right on that because it was a dream signing for him. And it really was. We're going to talk about Keith Lee's debut here in 1 second. But I've been ignoring the chat for a few minutes, so let me just cruise over here, make sure all is good. Also, smash that thumbs up button for me if you don't mind. I would appreciate it. DJ Scandalous, what's going on? Oh, Eric Bischoff 2020. Teddy Long for GM. I don't know if we need him. I don't want AEW to necessarily have a GM role, though, because those can be a little bit annoying, but I do think you need somebody to make a decision or render a decision from time to time. And, maybe Tony Khan should let someone else handle that. You know what I mean? I think there was a super chat here from Victor, correct? Yes, I saw you, then I lost you. Thanks for that $5 earlier on, dude. I appreciate it. I just wanted to say your family is more important than any watch along or stream. If you have to take time, take care of your cat. We understand. Oh, I know you guys will understand, Victor. That's kind of why I said that, because you guys are cool, and I don't expect any backlash from you guys whatsoever if I have to make some sort of a decision that will cut a stream short or cancel one. I know you guys will be great. Population 420, good to see you in here as well. But anyway, let me just kind of backtrack a little bit. This past week's TV, didn't really watch any of Raw because it was on Sci-Fi. They only drew a 1.38 rating, but that's not going to be too accurate because they switched networks, for a night because of the Olympics. So obviously, anytime Raw or SmackDown is on a different network, they are going to draw a lower number. So I think some fans were celebrating that low number for some reason, but to me, the low Raw rating didn't mean too much. If they're getting 1.38 on USA, that's going to be a problem, especially when you got Dynamite drawing 1.1. We're not talking about that much of a discrepancy here between, those two ratings. But yes, Raw being on Sci-Fi definitely played a role in that. The only thing I really remember about Raw this past week from the little I watched of it, because I actually went and saw Jackass Forever that night, so I missed about half of Raw. All I know is Chad Gable is a star. He is so hilarious, and he is doing a really good job of, I don't know if he's doing it on purpose or if he's just really eerily similar to Kurt Angle, in so many ways, because he's just goofy like that. The way he was, dresses up and the way he speaks, and, the fact that he's an Olympian and a great wrestler and really, really funny. He is one of my favorite people, if not my favorite person across all of WWE right now. And I really would love to see, for us to kind of get a little bit of that Kurt Angle vibe back in professional wrestling. And I think Chad Gable is the perfect candidate for that. And I think it would be even funnier if you brought Angle in, because you can't ignore how similar they are at this point, especially when Gable was riding around on the scooter and the bicycle suit and all that. He looked just like him. So I think bringing Angle in to potentially manage him or be a part of Alpha Academy might be fun. And I'm not taking the tag belts off of them for a while. I would love them to hang on and have a decent run. And then when it does finally end, for Gable to go singles and actually find some success this time as a single star. And he can kind of start out like Angle did, kind of that goofy type of guy, not Shorty G, but more like a Kurt Angle type of goofy, and then slowly morph into being a badass. Because even though Kurt Angle was goofy and weird back when he first started, when he would get in the ring and have these matches, he was a very dangerous man despite his goofiness. So I think that Chad Gable, can really, capture a lot of that same energy that Angle had. I've made similar comparisons about Riddle a lot, that he's a badass, but also he's a fucking goofball. And if you can find that balance, then that's, that can be what makes wrestling fun. So we'll keep our eye on Chad Gable, and hopefully one good thing coming out of WWE this year in 2022 is Chad Gable getting on the map, because he is way overdue for stardom in that company, and he should main event every WrestleMania for the next 5 years. That's how much I like him. But I do want to talk a little bit about Dynamite this past week, too. We'll talk a little bit about Dynamite. Then I'll roll through last night's Rampage. Then we'll touch on SmackDown, roll through the Elimination Chamber card, and then I'm going to get out of here. So in terms of Dynamite this past week, of course, we're here every Wednesday watching Dynamite live together. And this one was fun because we had the big announcement from Tony Khan. So I guess they opened up, was it the MJF celebration that started the show, right? He came out on the big throne. He kissed his girlfriend when he got in the ring. He made out with some redhead. Apparently that's his girlfriend. And a lot went on in that celebration with him thanking Shawn Spears instead of Wardlow, and him looking a little bit funny at that. Then CM Punk coming out, wanting another match against MJF, and MJF saying no. A couple of different matches were proposed, including a 6-man match, but MJF refused to wrestle. So he said that instead Punk can find a partner of his choosing, but he won't find one because he doesn't have any friends, and he can take on FTR later in the night. And if Punk and his partner beat FTR, then Punk earns a shot against MJF anytime, anywhere, which we would assume would probably be at Revolution. So the first name that I thought of when MJF said Punk has no friends was Samoa Joe. How cool would it be to see Samoa Joe come in? Punk even teased it, tagged Samoa Joe and asked him if he was busy, tweeted Danhausen, asked him if he was busy. So I'm like, is this going to be one of our first surprises here? Or we'd already gotten the 2 surprises by the time this match happened. So I'm like, shit, maybe we get a third surprise. But it turns out that his partner was Jon Moxley, which I really liked because of what we saw Moxley and Danielson do in their segment the week before. So Moxley teams with Punk. They beat FTR. They hit Dueling, Paradigm Shift, and GTS, which were landed nearly perfectly. They hit them, knocked them both out, double pin. Mox and Punk win. Punk earns his shot against MJF. Like I said, we can probably assume that'll take place at Revolution. But the fact that Moxley was his partner, makes me wonder if we are going to get at some point some sort of an interaction between Mox, Danielson, and Punk. I was really hoping that we'd have some Pinnacle guys interfere and Danielson would make the save and we'd see all 3 of them fight off the Pinnacle, but we didn't get that. But I think there's a chance for that down the road. So all of that kind of opened the show, and then we had the FTR, Mox, and Punk match later. But the Forbidden Door was entered first. Now, our first surprise came, I think, right after the celebration segment. We're backstage with Cole and the Young Bucks, and that's when Jay White makes his presence known, and Adam Cole had said that he's going to be targeting the AEW title. We would see him coming out in the main event later on. So it sounds like if he's going to be focusing on that, maybe Jay White's coming in to fill in for him because, Adam Cole wasn't around seemingly to know about the beef between Jay White and Kenny Omega. And the Bucks seemed to be aware of that. They even told Cole, it would have been cool if you clued us in what you had planned here because we could have told you about a few things. So they're leaving a lot of stuff open there for when Kenny comes back and a lot of possibility for dissension inside of this little, Bullet Club elite faction they have going on. So Jay White was the first one. We saw him. We would see him again last night on Rampage. And then they go to commercial. So Jay White showing up there, back turned and, Sling Blade is in the house. Or Switchblade is in the house, that we were all kind of digesting that during the commercial break. Wow, okay, Jay White, that's not a huge surprise. His name was tossed around all day. We saw him run out at the Impact pay-per-view. It's not that surprising that he would come in, but we weren't sure if he was the big new signing or if he was the forbidden door or what he is. So then we come back from commercial, and Isaiah Cassidy is coming down to the ring. He's got a qualifying match for the Face of Revolution ladder match against a mystery opponent. And I'm like, oh shit, so we're just kind of talking here on the stream, and then boom. Keith Lee's music hits, name pops up on the screen, crowd pops their balls off. The heels sell it. Matt Hardy sells it. Isaiah Cassidy sells it. The commentary team sells the shit out of it. The fans are happy. Keith Lee is happy. Some fans are fucking crying. And he gets in the ring, and he's going to be the mystery opponent for poor Isaiah Cassidy. And he beats the absolute hell out of Cassidy. What a perfect opponent to choose for Keith Lee. And this is what I talked about earlier in regards to Keith Lee, is like, it's not hard. The fact that WWE thought there was something to figure out with this guy. Oh, we can't figure him out. Nothing to figure out. He's just a big badass. Stick him in the ring. There wasn't much to figure out about Vader or Bam Bam Bigelow. Did you hear Jim Ross say Keith Lee reminds him of Mark Henry? Of course he does, Jim Ross. I wonder why. He doesn't remind me of Mark Henry at all. He reminds me of Vader. He reminds me of Bam Bam. He reminds me of guys like that. And so good, too good for his own good. And they did something simple. They put him in the ring with somebody who can sell for him, bump for him, make him look like $1 trillion, and say, Keith Lee, go out there and work a Keith Lee match. He did. The fucking crowd loved it. The announcers sold it. The heels sold it. Matt Hardy even said, the hell with this, jumped over the barricade and left, and the commentary team said that it was erratic behavior. Great shit there. And this entire match was so simple and so easy and so well executed, it makes you wonder how any of this was considered hard for WWE, how hard they make not hard things. You know what I mean? Like, that's all you had to do with Keith Lee. That's all you ever had to do with him in WWE. Put him out there, string up some wins, make him a contender. Fans will like him. Fans will be into it. And this was a really, really fun match. And of course, he beats Isaiah Cassidy rather easily. He now qualifies for this ladder match. And I don't even know what the stip is in this Face of Revolution ladder match. Does the winner of the ladder match get a title shot of any kind? Is it a TNT title shot? Because if it is, Keith Lee's my pick to win this thing, and I think he should beat Sammy Guevara for the title ASAP, just like Miro, ended Darby Allin. I think that it should be something similar here. So I am all about Keith Lee. He is over like Rover right now, and I think with him, you can't obviously stick him right into the world title scene and jumble that all up, but at least a TNT title run for Keith Lee would be a hell of a lot of fun down the road. And imagine Adam Cole and Keith Lee interaction down the road, and if anything happens there, it just seems like there are lots and lots of possibilities for Lee now that he's in AEW, and I don't think that debut could have gone any better for Keith Lee. So great, and I cannot tell you how stupendously happy I am for him. Dude just got married a couple of days ago. He's had a hell of a 2022 so far, and hopefully things are just getting started for Keith Lee, because he's been through hell. He was unstoppable maniac in NXT, and then they brought him up to the main roster, and they murdered everything about him that made him special. COVID nearly killed him. They kept him off TV forever. They changed up his outfit and his music more than once, renamed him to Bearcat, and then dumped him like a sack of trash. So the fact that he's able to bounce back from this, he's in a much better place, in terms of his personal life and mentally and spiritually. And now that he's married, I'm sure he is so motivated, so happy, so driven, in a much better place than he was, maybe 6 months or a year ago. So we here on the channel cannot be happier for Keith Lee. What a fucking debut. Oh my God. Looks like we're going to get Pentagon Dark coming into the company. I never saw any of him in Lucha Underground, but the little vignette they did at the cemetery where he pulled out the red mask, a lot of people are like, oh, that's Penta Dark from Lucha Underground. I never really saw any of that. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm glad that they're keeping him busy, since Phoenix is going to be on the shelf probably for quite a while. The Inner Circle meeting in the ring was fantastic. The best promo I've ever heard Santana cut in my life. The way he broke the fourth wall choked Jericho out. All of that stuff was great. And it looks like we've got a match. Of course, Jericho laid down the challenge, I think. One of them did. It's going to be Santana and Ortiz against Hager and Jericho this week on Dynamite. It sounds like this is it for the Inner Circle. You know, Santana was very, very good in that promo, and he said that if it weren't for Ortiz, he would have taken down Jericho long ago. He spoke a lot of truth in his promo. He talked about how they've all been there for the Inner Circle, there for the team, but really how has it benefited Proud and Powerful? Jericho, you know, has benefited the most. You know, Sammy Guevara has benefited a little bit, but I kind of feel like Santana and Ortiz should have already been AEW Tag Team Champions by now, and they haven't even really gotten a shot at that yet, and that's kind of messed up. So Jericho even throwing out that maybe they hired the wrong members of LAX, and as soon as he said that I think that's when Santana put his hands on Jericho's throat. So we've got the big tag match coming up next week, but Santana's performance in that promo on Wednesday was so great. The way he looked at the camera and all that. Oh my God, great stuff. I didn't even realize Santana had that in him. Fucking awesome. I also am really liking the Serena Deeb stuff. Also, we did get Jade Cargill defeating AQA. She's that girl that can hit that phenomenal shooting star press. She had a cup of coffee in NXT as well, and Cargill got the win there. So she's still undefeated and still TBS champion. But they had another women's segment on the show as well, so that's two. A lot of times we're just getting one women's match, not two, so we kind of got two tonight, and it was Serena Deeb's like 5-minute rookie challenge or whatever she's calling it. I like this because what this tells me is that she's doing this so somebody can come in and beat her. And I don't think it's going to be somebody under contract. I think they're going to use this as a way to bring somebody in, like maybe an Ember Moon or an Athena, I guess she's called. Toni Storm. Who else? What other decent women's name is out there that could answer one of these 5-minute challenges and beat Serena Deeb or outlast her? You know, it's got to be a rookie challenge, though. I think that's kind of how they're phrasing it, is a rookie challenge. But it seems to me the whole point of doing a segment like this is for her to do it for a few weeks and then have somebody debut. They're setting up for a debut here, and I cannot wait to see who it is. And how can we not talk about that bonkers main event, Texas Death Match, Hangman Page and Lance Archer? I cannot believe some of the shit we saw in that. We saw a ton of blood, of course, and then we saw that crazy spot on the outside of the ring with the steel steps. They basically took the steps away from the ring, turned them on its side, or Archer did. So now the steps are laying sideways. I've never seen anybody bump on the steps like this before. And then he picks up Page for the blackout and hits the blackout, I guess, off the apron onto the steps, and the way they just bent and toppled. I don't understand how either of these guys didn't suffer life-threatening injuries here. I mean, it was gnarly. We had a fork out in this thing being dug into the skull of Hangman Page. Dan Lambert was out there. He actually unhooks the turnbuckles on the top rope, and they lose the top rope. And the point of him doing that, pretty smart, was so Hangman Page can't hit Archer with the buckshot lariat because he uses the top rope for a springboard. So the finish was so fucking good after all the blood, all the forks, after the ridiculous table spots and the chair bumps and everything else they're doing, and a couple of failed attempts, I think, at trying to beat Archer. They get, basically Archer is, I think, on the ring apron, and remember, there's no top rope. He's on the ring apron. There are tables set up on the floor. The referee, Page is selling something in the ring. The referee is bending over to pick something up. I'm not sure what. I can't remember. And that's when Page sees an opportunity to use the bent over referee as his springboard to flip over and use the referee as a way to nail the buckshot lariat onto Archer. They both fall over the middle rope, off the apron and through the table. And Archer is not able to answer the 10 count, and Hangman Page retains the title. That main event on Dynamite far exceeded my expectations for it. I thought it would be a good, bloody, brutal brawl. Don't get me wrong, but I wasn't expecting them to do pay-per-view type of spots on this show, which is why I think Dynamite is just really set apart from Raws or SmackDowns. You don't get this vibe on Raws or SmackDowns. They don't give you the feeling of being special. They don't give you the feeling of being unique. They don't give you the feeling of anything can happen, title change, everything that happens on Red or Blue seems to be very predictable, where this I wasn't expecting half the shit I saw in this match. Fantastic. The whole show on Dynamite this week I thought was very good. There was a couple of things I didn't love, a couple of promos that dragged on, but overall, I think the show was really, really, really strong this week. And it was from a great venue, the Boardwalk Place in Atlantic City, the same venue that WrestleMania 4 and WrestleMania 5 were held in, and a pretty significant Monday Night Raw in late 97, right after SummerSlam, right after Shawn cost Bret the title, and he was going to start moving into his deal with The Undertaker. It was the first night, it was in that building that I believe they teamed up Triple H and Shawn Michaels for the first time ever. They hadn't really associated with each other on TV yet. And that's when they put them together. That was also the same night that Rick Rude debuted in the company as Triple H's insurance policy. And the tag team match was against The Undertaker and Mankind, which was really weird to see for someone like me who just saw the two guys battle for the better part of the year in 1996. And that was when Shawn bashed Taker's face with the chair and opened him up, and that set up their Ground Zero match in 97. All that took place in this building, and it was just a really cool venue and a cool look to the whole place. So I'm really glad they were there on Wednesday. I hope they return to that venue down the road in the future, because it's a cool place to hold wrestling shows in. And like I said, next week is stacked. Lee Moriarty taking on Bryan Danielson. That's going to be fun. TNT title on the line. Guevara defending against Darby Allin. We've got Wardlow and Max Caster in a qualifying ladder match. We've got a no DQ match between Thunder Rosa and Mercedes Martinez. And we've got the Inner Circle Implosion with Chris Jericho and Hager taking on Santana and Ortiz. Looks pretty stacked. In terms of last night's Rampage, great fucking opener with the Young Bucks and Roppongi Vice. That was a banger. We had a Danhausen sighting underneath the ring. He got pulled out of there and did his thing. Huge pop, of course. He doesn't have to do much. It's a guy like Danhausen. That's what makes him so great, is he doesn't have to do shit. You pull him out from under the ring, fans see his face, they pop, job's done. BTE trigger to Rocky Romero for the win. Bucks get the win in this. After the match, Orange Cassidy gets in the ring with Brandon Cutler. Cutler tries to spray him, and then Cassidy hits him with the shin kicks, and then Bucks run in, hit Cassidy with the super kick party, and that leaves Trent kind of in the ring by himself, and Trent is trying to pick himself up off the ropes. And Jay White appears behind him, hits him with the Blade Runner, and it looks like we're going to get Jay White and Trent. That's a perfect match to have here. You know, you got to put Jay White over, of course. He's going to have to win coming in, and I don't know how long he's going to be around there for, in AEW before leaving, if it's a short-term deal, or how much they have planned for him there. But having him come in, work either a TV match versus Trent or maybe even an undercard match versus Trent at Revolution. Either way, I'm fine. Just cool to see Jay White in an AEW ring. He is a superb professional wrestler. When Jericho made the jump and worked over New Japan, I subscribed to New Japan World and had done so for a few years, and that's kind of where I discovered Jay White. And I just thought he was fantastic. So he's just a really solid hand, really great worker, and super young with his career ahead of him. And he's a great get for him to come in for however long he's going to be there for. But when you add him and Keith Lee on the same night coming into AEW, the boost that gives their already growing and improving talent roster, some really, really, really seriously good names, and just good to see him there. We had a Bryan Danielson interview where he did reference the teaming of Punk and Moxley on Wednesday. That was kind of cool. And he was then confronted by Matt Sydal and Lee Moriarty, where they set up the match that's now advertised for Wednesday. Britt Baker defeated Robin Renegade pretty easily there. After the match, she continues the beatdown until Thunder Rosa comes out to make the save. And then Jamie Hayter and Mercedes Martinez come out to beat down Thunder Rosa. And the two of them kind of get into it a little bit because, they're not on the same page, even though Britt wants them to be. And of course, we've got, I believe it's Mercedes Martinez and Thunder Rosa on Wednesday, correct? And that's going to be no DQ, which is going to be fucking great. They ran a Layla Hirsch and Chris Statlander video package, which you would normally not think anything of. But during the video package, as each woman is being interviewed, Chris Statlander, who's the babyface, mind you, says in her interview, because Layla Hirsch, she's been open about this. Apparently, she lived in an orphanage. She was given up for adoption, or she found herself in an orphanage somehow. And Chris Statlander says, has a line in her interview where she says, "No wonder your parents gave you up." Whoa, that's pretty insane. Got a lot of people talking on social media. Oh my God, she's a babyface. What's she doing saying shit like that? That is kind of a weird line for a babyface to say, but at the same time, it's a personal issue. And if you really truly hate somebody, you're going to insult them. And to me, I feel like the rule should be, unless it's something really gnarly, like really dark, I think the rule basically should be is if the talent is okay with it, then it should be okay. I mean, as long as you're not talking about somebody, if Layla Hirsch was molested as a kid or something, yeah, obviously don't bring that up. But, I still think there are some things that you can bring up, provided that all parties are okay with it and there's no hard feelings, because I understand certain things, maybe be crossing the line. But if I'm a wrestler, I'm cool. There's going to be very little off the table in terms of what another wrestler could say about me. If they want to bring up family, if they want to, dead family members, if they want to bring up my past mistakes, my past relationships, where I used to work, how many jobs I've been fired from, hit me with it, because if we're pretending to hate each other, we should act like we really hate each other. And it's not like in movies, or I understand that people would say, well, what if there's what if you're at home? What if I'm watching TV and I was in an orphanage, and then I see this, and then it, it brings up these memories. Hey, I totally get it. Those are the same things we get in movies and TV shows. Every TV show you watch, they might bring up a subject matter that you've dealt with, and it might make you sad. It might make you uncomfortable. It might make you think about it or whatever. It's kind of, I do think that there's a line you shouldn't cross. Me personally, my line here wasn't crossed. Maybe some people feel that that's too far. I personally don't, because I know that in AEW, nothing like that would ever make air without everybody agreeing to it. For all we know, Layla Hirsch is like, hey, hit me with my fucking orphanage shit, because that's the way I would be. So we don't really know. I don't think this was really something to get that upset about. I think there are things you can say that take it too far. But for me personally, this one was cool with me. Not saying it has to be cool with you. Not saying everybody should think the way I do. But this particular incident, I was fine with it. There have been other times where I haven't been. I was surprised when they brought up Reed Flair in that Charlotte promo those years ago. But, I was also saying, well, Charlotte was probably all right with it. That's gnarly. It's dark. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sure if that's where I would go to try to get heat. But I didn't, at the end of the day, really have a huge problem with it, because all parties involved were obviously okay. But, it can bring up some bad memories for audience members who might have lost a sibling. You know what I mean? So that's always stuff you have to consider. But in terms of that, I'll let that one go. Our boy Hook was in action too. Defeated Blake Lee with a red drum submission. Make easy work of Blake Lee. So Hook continues to roll. I give Hook about 3 or 4 more weeks, and he should be AEW and TNT champion at the same time. He'll probably win both of those belts before we get into the month of April. So look out for Hook 2 belts coming up. And in the main event, we had the tag team titles on the line. I guess they're not really Jurassic Express anymore, but Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy defeating the Ass Boys to retain the title, or titles. And I'm cool with them losing the belts pretty soon. I think it would be awesome if Santana and Ortiz beat Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy for the titles. That's what I'm hoping happens either at Revolution or down the road. And also we had, I guess Ricky Starks was on commentary, and he announced that next week on Rampage, we're going to get Dante Martin taking on Will Hobbs in another Revolution ladder match qualifier. And I did notice a special start time on Rampage next week for 7 Eastern. Did I hear that right? So that's going to run head-to-head with SmackDown, I think, from what I understand. So that should be interesting. Speaking of SmackDown, they drew a little bit over a 2 million rating from last night. I'm not going to mention too much about it other than that fantastic main event between Naomi and Charlotte. That was so good. It was good to see Naomi kicking ass. It was good to see the fans into that. And, that's why Charlotte's Charlotte. That was a great match between those two. I know Charlotte and Naomi are friends. Even after the finish, you could see Charlotte mouthing a little thank you to Naomi. They fucking crushed it last night on SmackDown. Loved that match, and I think that was a career performance for Naomi. I never really felt the glow too much up until recently, up until the Sonya stuff started, and you really see they're dragging this out long, and we're probably going to get Sonya and Naomi at WrestleMania. But more importantly, I'm hoping that this match last night from Naomi had that Chris Benoit, Kurt Angle, Rumble 2003 effect, to where in the losing effort, this was the match where, WWE took notice and said, okay, we got to belt up Naomi soon. She's over. The fans love her. Maybe we can even do something with her at WrestleMania if we wanted to get her into the Rousey stuff, or as soon as WrestleMania comes and goes, you give her the belt. I don't believe she should have won last night because Charlotte's going into WrestleMania to face Rousey. That's kind of a big match. If that match wasn't on tap, then I would have put Naomi over 100% last night, but I think the right outcome happened, and I don't think that's the end of the road for Naomi. I think she will finally get her revenge on Sonya. She will earn another title shot, and I think she will have her moment in the company. That was pretty much the only thing worth mentioning last night on SmackDown. Goldberg and Roman both hyped up their Elimination Chamber match. Natalya defeated Aaliyah in that dungeon-style match they had. She won with a sharpshooter in the ropes. So Natalya finally got a victory over Aaliyah after, 3 straight losses there. She continued to beat her up until Xia Li came down and made the save. Madcap and Drew McIntyre have got a match at Elimination Chamber. That has now been made into a Falls Count Anywhere match in a segment with Madcap and Drew and the Sword. Cesaro ate a clean loss to Baron Corbin, or to Happy Corbin, clean. I don't even think he got an entrance. He got a jobber entrance, so that's what they're doing with Cesaro. That's fun. Like I mentioned earlier when we talked about the New Day, Los Lotharios got a 50-50 booking win over Big E and Kofi last night as well, which is just ridiculous when you think that when you think that Big E had the WWE title around his waist 2 months ago. Kofi is also a former champion, and they're losing to these fuckers. So that happened. Just not much interest on the show at all. Everything I watched put me to sleep. I did like the In Zayn segment, though, with Nakamura and Rick Boogs, where Zayn talked about the Johnny Knoxville stuff. They even showed the footage of Knoxville buying the Sami Zayn jackass knockoff merch and putting it in a wood chipper. That was good stuff. And Sami Zayn has his Intercontinental Championship match next week on SmackDown against Nakamura. That show has already been taped, and I won't spoil it for you, but if you want to look up who wins, you can do that yourself. And it feels like with the direction they're going in now, it's going to be Knoxville and Sami Zayn at WrestleMania, and there might even be a championship belt on the line. What are the odds? Give me your odds on Johnny Knoxville becoming Intercontinental Champion in the WWE. Holy shit. But I think it actually could happen. So that leaves us just with the Elimination Chamber card. Here's what we've got for the Chamber. We've got the Championship Elimination Chamber match with Bobby Lashley defending against all those dudes. We've got Becky Lynch taking on Lita, Roman Reigns versus Goldberg, and we also have the women's is this a chamber match? Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley versus Bianca Belair versus Doudrop versus Nikki ASH. Winner earns opportunity at Raw Women's title at WrestleMania. This is right off WWE's website. I think that's a chamber match. I actually don't even fucking know. We also have, of course, Drew McIntyre and Madcap Moss. The Usos defending against the Viking Raiders, and a new tag team match that was set up last night. Ronda Rousey and Naomi teaming up to take on Charlotte Flair and Sonya Deville. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 matches so far for the Chamber. And there you go. So I'm starting to run out of time, guys. I got to get out of here, but let me cruise over here to the chat because I even missed a call while I was talking from my vet. So I need to call them back right now. But I know a couple super chats have rolled in, so let me knock these out. Spaz Phoenix, good to see you, man. Thank you so much for that $5. For anyone that still gives a damn about NXT, there's a Vengeance Day preview up now on my pod, YouTube, Spotify, Rumble, etc. Cheers, Greg. Thank you for that, Spaz. Please go subscribe to Spaz's YouTube channel. I completely forgot about Vengeance Day on Tuesday. I'll try to get some comments on that up this week for sure. And I'll also be up here for Crown Jewel predictions, even though I'm not going to be reviewing Crown Jewel. But I'll at least give you predictions on that this week. AJ Marshall, appreciate that $5, dude. There was a report Eddie Kingston expect to return to Dynamite or Rampage. If so, do you expect him, Santana, and Ortiz to be a group? Yes, possibly. They've even teased that. So I think that would be cool if they put them together, but I'd also be cool with Proud and Powerful running alone and chasing those tag team championships. Regardless of where they go there, I'm going to be all right with it for sure. So, anywho, I apologize for having to cut this a little bit short. Normally, I answer a few more questions in the chat and talk with you guys a little bit, but I got to get out of here now. I've got a dinner to go make, or I have to go to, and a phone call I have to make as well. So you guys have a great rest of your Saturday afternoon. Have fun watching the Super Bowl tomorrow. Feel free to tweet me shit if you want, and I'll be back up here possibly Monday for a Raw review, but I'm not sure yet. So make sure you subscribe. Shoot me a follow on Twitter so I can keep you up to date on the next time you are going to see me. So have a great Saturday. Thanks again, guys, and I will catch you very soon. Peace.